We've got retirement communities around us, Kahiti, Tellico Village, and 2 or 3 subdivisions. So I've got to get along with them like they've got to get along. We've all got to be compatible together.
Several years ago, the Watershed Association received funding to do extensive water testing along Back Creek. And we knew that Back Creek was impaired and that there were several problems.
With the involvement with the WATeR group, it created a great opportunity for collaboration of multi-agencies and the public sector to get involved within these projects, and not only this project, but with potential projects for future projects through the state.
We wanted to identify where the various sources were, and we were able to prioritize which projects would perhaps make the most improvement to the quality of the Back Creek.
It was a little sketchy, I think, at first about 6 years ago, but actually it really worked out really good. The last year or so, we was able to collaborate and get our heads together, and then with that being said, come up with a good solid plan specifically on this site. It was the #1 site within the county that they had monitored.
I would hope that what other property owners might see as a successful project that's been accomplished here would be motivation for helping them to decide to go forward with a grant of their own.
This site itself, I mean, it lays right on a major highway. There's a lot of eyes on this project. So basically this is really good outreach to the community to see what all potential we can do and what can be offered through these grant programs. I am the district conservationist for Monroe and Blount County, servicing the USD Service Center for Madisonville.
Well, I was approached about 3 years ago with this project, but like most landowners, I was kind of, a little leery of it. And which I'm in a unique situation. We're trying to, farm and use the land to make a living. And we've got recreational lakes around us. We've got retirement communities around us, Kahiti, Tellico Village, and 2 or 3 subdivisions. So, and an industrial park, and I've got to get along with them like they've got to get along. We've all got to be compatible together. I own DW Farms here in Lakeside. It consists of 800 acres. We run 2,000 feeder cattle at all times, 500 sheep, and we run the stockyards in Athens and use this farm to kind of support that market.
About 3 years ago, the WATeR group had come to the Monroe County Soil Conservation District and the Natural Resource Conservation Service. They previously had been working with UT on a 319 grant for the Back Creek area. The grants monies were specific for Back Creek itself. The monies that were coming in was basically to come into on these farms and landowners to help basically install best management practices to address the resource concerns on the landscape on the properties. So as the approach came, we got with the WATeR group, done some surveying throughout the county or throughout the watershed. And throughout the watershed, there was several sites that were previously tested for multiple times over the course of several years. And there was several sites that had high levels of interest that need to be addressed. With the problems that were at hand, the pollutants, you got erosion issues, E. coli levels that were within the impaired. That's what caused it to be a 319 impaired water body, because of certain levels of contaminants within the watershed.
When Jason first approached me with this project, I was reluctant because I've got a good spring right here and the cattle were doing good. But the more he talked to me, I saw the erosion. We had some ditches washed out that were probably 10 foot deep. And Jason sat down and he showed me how we could do those ditches and stuff. So we kind of got started. I got on board with that.
So taking on this project, I know there was going to be some additional help, not only from my staff at the local level. I had reached out to our engineering staff out of Knoxville. With the help and support of the engineering staff, they come down graciously to help do a lot of surveying. of the areas of interest that we had, that was these gullies, and basically the ditches running for several thousands of feet. So basically we set up to survey these ditches to what we were planning designing were some basically waterways, but they were going to be rock line waterways because of the amount of the watershed, the flow, and the amount of watershed coming down. It was going to have to be rock lined. You know, with being said, there was several loads, nearly 100 loads of rock that were put on this site. So about, you know, close to under 2,000 tons of rock. There was a lot of work done and a lot of engineering going into this project. So primarily on this location, we addressed 3 or 4 different sites of rockline waterways. We had one primarily was about 1,800 foot. Then we had 3 others that we addressed in another field that were smaller, but they're on average about 200 to 150 foot in length to help slow down the sediment load and the runoff.
Then he come up, we need to fence your spring out, your branch out. Well, I kind of, you know, I thought, well, I don't know about that. Then you know, me and my wife, we come down here one day and we were looking at the banks on this branch and all that and how it was, you know, I mean, the cattle were just wearing it out. And so Jason, you know, I went back with him, we agreed to do this. Well, we got our ditch in. You know, we got the rock in it and everything, and it looked good. Well, Jason come up, we need to fence them out of there. I thought, well, now, Jason, we don't, you know, those rock are not going to hurt, the cattle are not going to hurt it. He said, well, you know, it'd just be better with this project.
So the reasons for the exclusion fence and denial of those waterways where we done the rock line waterway, the fence is basically going to create a barrier of exclusion from the livestock to those areas and will help reduce the settlement loads or anything getting into those waterways. So keeping the cattle from the ditches, which are rock line, is basically going to allow grass to grow, and that's going to cause a buffer.
So we agreed to do, you know, we fenced the branches, the ditches out. They can't get in there, you know, and the branch, and I mean, it all looks good. Me and my wife both were real satisfied with the way it makes our property look, because here at DW Farms, we want stuff to look good. We like green grass and barns and stuff, and so it's worked pretty good with us here. And I'm sure it's going to be pretty good, you know, with our neighbors.
To improve the water quality, we have to provide alternative water sources to the livestock. So they can come from municipal water, whether if it's from city water, county water, or a well. So we'll tap into that source, and then we basically bury pipeline to however far we need. On this project itself, we laid a little over 3,000 feet of pipeline that was buried at a minimum 18 inches. So basically we took 1.5 inch schedule 40 and run it for about 3,000 feet. We installed 4 alternative water sources. Those alternative water sources are basically automatic waters that will allow the livestock to drink as needed. And it's a fresh source of water.
What we have found out, that the cattle, with the placement of these watering troughs, instead of the cattle laying up here on the front next to the water and grazing this off real short, by placing those watering troughs, the cattle are staying on the back. We've noticed this the last month.
We try to incorporate it to where it's about 800 foot or so apart between the waters. And the reason why doing so is to help distribute those water facilities to cut down on paths to water source, the way they're equally distributed in a field. That way you get equally distributed of grazing within these fields. That way they don't have, therefore, longer distance to walk during stresses of times during the summer. So that also, again, comes back on herd health. So if they've got 2,000 feet of length to walk to water source, well, the whole ambition of the landowner is gain on those cattle. And the gain, they're losing gain if they're having to walk and they're stressed.
That's our main objective, is the profit that we make off the cattle, or with our neighbors, it's the quality of the water.
This project, honestly, it's a milestone in my career. It was a big project, has a lot of impact.
Like I've said before, we were very reluctant. Probably without Jason, I wouldn't have done this project. I'm extremely pleased with the whole experience. Jason, what's next?
NRCS is working with the Monroe County Soil Conservation District. aligned also with other partners with the WATeR group. So we're going to a second phase, and this second phase, and hopefully it'll lead to a third phase until we get this whole project is totally aligned to get this watershed cleaned up. And so to get it off the impaired list with TDEC, so that way we have a good clean stream that is not designated as an impaired water body.
People may think I'm crazy, but the cattle that we've got that I've noticed the last year or so, because we've had the watering troughs and stuff before, we've just not faced them out of the ponds. And since we've done this to where they cannot get in the water and they can't stand, just the last week we were checking cattle and I looked at them and I said, hey, these cattle look better since we've fastened them out of the ponds than they did before. So, I think we're producing a better product by putting some of these practices in place.